Well, thank you very much. I'm Mike Fleming, the co-editor-in-chief of Deadline Hollywood, and as a longtime journalist, I've always felt, we're a paranoid lot, but it always feels like the journalists that make it onto a movie screen are villains, plagiarists, or recklessly ambitious cretins bent on getting ahead at the expense of the subjects they write about. Now, so to me, the subject of Spotlight is just, it so validates everything that you have in your heart when you go to journalism school. And these reporters really are kind of our versions of superheroes. So I want to bring out the makers of this film. And we have Tom McCarthy, who wrote and directed it. We have Josh Singer, who co-wrote it. And we have the people who produced it, Steve Golan and Nicole Rockland. Please give them a nice welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let me start this way with our producers. Now, this is a very unorthodox, there's no giant whale in this movie. It's not the kind of picture that you usually see. Go back to when you got the rights and you decided, what made you feel like this had the elements of an important film?
I think that the journalists were heroic, and what they did changed the world and changed this country. And there is no way we couldn't tell the story. It was a necessary film.
Well, now, and this is for Tom and Josh. Now, this movie has gotten as good or better reviews than just about anything that's come out so far this year. But there really is no clear male or female lead like you usually see. There's no hot romances, where the reporters come out of bed and then go and meet with a source or sleep with a source or whatever. And there's not that soaring music to manipulate emotion. Now, can you explain, guys, these choices you made as you veered from what you usually see? And what were the concerns of distributors when you shopped this picture before you started production?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, I don't think Josh and I realized just how boring reporters are when we took this project on. We couldn't believe how little sensational bits we could not find. We tried. No, look, when we committed to this project, and I think for a host of reasons, I think for those of you who have seen the film, understand that there's a lot of avenues by which to talk about and approach this film. But I think collectively we just felt that the material at face value was incredibly compelling, that the work that these reporters and editors did at the Boston Globe was not only, obviously the results, as Nicole alluded to, were so impactful nationally, internationally, and continue to be today, but just the work they did, the actual minutia of the investigation and how they cracked this case was just so interesting that we really early on just committed to the idea of authenticity. You're right, there is no clear leading man or woman, there is no romance, but there's a lot of other really wonderful details in the procedure of it all that we thought would win the day if we captured them correctly. And we rely, of course, on a terrific cast, great performances, and a real true ensemble, which I think we feel like we hear that word used a lot because every film, in essence, has an ensemble. But for us, it really meant splitting time between all these characters and treating them as one and taking our inspiration from the actual Globe Spotlight team and how they collaborated together. Yeah.
I would just add, early on, Tom, when we had just started, it was clear that authenticity was going to be Tom's watchword, and he had me watch this movie Police, which is this great French film that came out probably around 2012. And it is a ensemble of like 12 different actors, and they're all French actors. I didn't know any of them. And I watched it, and then I went to him, I said, "Are we doing Altman?" And I was a little nervous, and he said, "No, we're not doing Altman. We're just trying to get across what this team is." And the wonderful thing about writing with Tom is, you know when you do a little subtle moment, he's going to be able to cast and then get the performance out of that actor such that those actors are going to be individual and that ensemble is going to pop, even though you're going to be spread out among 6 different protagonists as opposed to 2.
Well, you invited the actual Spotlight team to be very much part of this, and you're very inclusive, and it's very clear that every actor in that cast really took great pains to bring a close composite of each of those reporters on the screen. But now you guys are dramatists, so when you have to take certain liberties, you have to do certain things to make this as entertaining a film as possible. What were some of the things that maybe mulled that perhaps they put their foot down because, unlike your reporter in The Wire that you played, I mean, these are serious, no-nonsense journalists.
That hurts. Start there. I have feelings. Yeah, I don't think there was anything that they really killed. I mean, I think they were, I think, look, Josh and I spent at least two and a half years just investigating their investigation. So we spent a lot of time, and these reporters were involved every step of the way. They were first through a series of interviews, sit-downs, and then it just went on and on and on, right up through production. They read drafts of the script. They were on set with us. Almost at every minute, we had a reporter from that team on set with us. It was an incredible resource, and I don't think we could have gotten it quite the way we did without their complete commitment to the project. They continue to be. Now the studio has fallen in love with them, so they're dragging them through the Hollywood promo, train, which is hilarious to see these reporters who spend most of their time alone doing good work, like handling Q&As and attending premieres. It's really been fun, but I think I speak for both of us. We couldn't have done it without them. I mean, they were so committed to it.
Yeah, it's funny. Some of the reviews note there's no cliche like a reporter drinking in a bar, and there were a couple scenes of Robbie drinking scotch, and Robbie said, "I don't drink scotch, I drink wine." We said, "Okay." And we lost a couple of those scenes, and the other scene he's drinking wine. I think part of this is they were so involved that they really, anything that might have been cliche was sort of knocked out in favor of what actually happened. And it was really a pleasure collaborating with them.
And what was it like that first screening when you showed it to them? What? Okay.
This just in.
And what was the reaction then to the first screening when you showed it to the journalists? Were they did they have trepidations? Did they?
I think they did every step of the way. I mean, look, we show up, they don't know us. We've said we're going to make a movie about your lives. That would make anyone nervous, and even the best intentions can go wrong more often than not in our business. So it took them a while just to open up to us. They were immediately available to us, but I would say it took over a year for them to really start to trust us and really open up to us and for us to go deeper. And some of the best bits, I think, that we pulled into the movie from them didn't come for at least after a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, not only do we interview them, but we interview just about everybody else depicted in the movie and well beyond that, because we were really trying to get a sense of the culture of Boston at the time, not just the Globe, but the city of Boston. So it meant talking to a lot of people. In terms of, what was your question again, though? It was specifically.
Well, it was just specific. It's all right. I think you more or less answered it.
Did I though?
I'm gonna track along. Sorry, I'm
just
distracted by this guy who came and interrupted our flow.
I bet Josh remembers it. Josh.
That's all right. Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Tell us.
I was just gonna say, to what Tom was saying, like I think the most challenging thing was we uncovered things because we went out beyond the reporters. We uncovered a couple things, details that maybe they would have rather we didn't know. And some of them we incorporated in the film, but to their great credit, I think, and screening the film for them was very nerve-wracking, right? Because we love these guys, right? We want these guys to feel like we've been respectful and responsible, not overly respectful, but certainly responsible to what they do. And given that we've got some things that maybe they don't want to have in there, I think it was really gratifying that they appreciated the movie for what it was and for what it says about journalism.
I'll add one thing to that too, Mike, because when we did show them the movie, they were at first, we screened it. We went up to Boston, we showed it to them in a small theater, just them, and they were just kind of stunned. Like no one spoke for like 5 minutes, and then I think it was Matt Carroll finally went, "I think it's freaking awesome," and then they started to like get more, kind of get into the conversation. We probably sat there for another hour and talked about it. And then Josh and I said, hey, let's all go out and have a drink and really get into it. And they were all, to the one, wanted to go home. They just wanted to go home and process. And we started getting like lengthy emails that night about how they felt. And it was actually quite emotional. It was like sitting at a bar and reading reviews from the people you made the movie about. And one thing I'll say that was really touching is we were at that point debating. They won the Pulitzer Prize for this, and I think for all the right reasons. And we were really, as a team, as a creative team up here, really debating whether to include that card in the end credits. And there was a big push to do it, and I was not so convinced that it was the right thing. We put it to the reporters, and we said, what do you guys think? Should we have in the black cards at the end, won the Pulitzer Prize in 2003? And to the one, they were like, no, nope. We won that prize, that's great, but that's not what this movie's about, and those cards represent our work. And I think it says a lot about who they are as people and as reporters.
Well, now, Steve, you set these projects up, and you're also the producer on The Revenant, one of the other big movies that are in this Oscar period. And you're good at setting up difficult projects. When you sold this, what was the biggest reservation that suitors had before Open Road said, "Yeah, we're in"?
Well, we developed it with participant media pretty much from the beginning. So, and they were the ones that ultimately, I think with First Look, they wound up financing the movie in conjunction with Participant and E1. So there was a lot, before we went to Open Road, there was a lot of interest in this film from other distributors. We didn't have a difficult time finding people that wanted to distribute the movie, but the movie was a real challenge getting it set up because of the ensemble nature of it, that there is no one lead actor that you can hang your hat on. And I think that really the momentum thing was honestly, the script was so great. And even the distributors, the ones that you go, this movie might be a tough subject matter for them or too artistic or too small, I think they were interested in it. And it was really just a question of, these guys, Tom and Josh, wrote a phenomenal script, and Tom's the kind of director that attracts actors, and Mark Ruffalo was the first actor that committed to it, and we built the ensemble around him. And it was challenging, just putting the schedule together, frankly. I mean, you have this number of actors, it's a lot of actors, and they were all meaningful, and they all helped trigger the financing ultimately. We had to pull together a pretty big cast, and just the logistics and the balancing act of that was difficult. But it came together it was a struggle, but it came together nicely, and we're really we're proud of the movie, and I think Tom hit a very small bullseye with this type of movie, because if it's 10 degrees off, you're in real trouble. And I think for Jeff Skoll and Jonathan King, who were the ones that really initially backed it financially, we have to give them all the credit.
Well, now this movie, in many reviews, many reviewers have invoked All the President's Men, which is kind of the gold standard of movies about journalism. And I wonder, from a construct standpoint, I can see the parallels. Just as the Washington Post was taking on one of the dominant institutions in its local area, the Boston Globe reporters did the exact same thing. And if they were wrong, the ramifications could have been catastrophic. When you thought about journalism films, and Josh, I know you wrote one in the Fifth Estate before this, how did you see that? And from a narrative standpoint, how does it compare to a movie like All the President's Men in your minds?
Well, I think I speak for all of us when we try not to compare it to All the President's Men. That's a seminal movie. It's a great movie, whether you like journalism movies or just movies. It's an incredible feat. Great director, great actors. And I think in approaching this project, I can tell you personally, I know that movie well. I tried not to even reference the movie. I just tried to let go of it. I think, you always have to commit as a director to the material that's in front of you and then find your inspiration there. There are so many. I think Ron Howard made a great one called The Paper, speaking of Ron Howard in Wales. So I think there's a lot, and there's so many others, right? Absence of Malice, so many great movies about it. So it was really what makes ours original, and I think that's where we started, and where my crew, my artistic crew and our producers were always like, what makes this movie relevant now? What makes it thing? And I think really when we started hitting these themes of not only where we are in journalism today, right? This was 2001, before the bottom fell out on the industry, which has been severely, if not crippled, decimated at this point. So there's that. there was also just this greater theme that Josh and I were hitting on earlier of societal complicity and deference, and it sort of started to make this thing feel really relevant to all the ills that are happening today and how they happen and what we can do and the importance of newspapers in terms of impacting these situations. It just felt like, yeah, great, thank you. I agree. I think I think we saw it as like championing this thing that we're all letting go of. It's sort of disappearing before our eyes, and it really feels like an American tragedy. We're just letting, high-level investigative journalism, especially at a local level, like this was a local story, and it's just disappearing. And we seem to be okay with that, and that to me is something that I think we felt very strongly about in diving into this, and it certainly made it very relevant to us today.
One thing that I'll point out, which we've said a lot now, 'cause it's one thing that Marty Barron says all the time, is, Watergate was a local story at first too. It was two Metro reporters who were investigating a break-in, right? And then it had national ramifications, just like this was a local story, right? Which had international ramifications. And that these stories, done on the local level, local investigative journalism is so important. And, I think for me with the Fifth Estate, I was trying to talk about that. And for whatever reason, I'm proud of that movie, but it didn't connect. And I'm happy that this one seems to be. And, it's through not talking about it, but showing it. Just showing great local reporting and hopefully creating awareness of, what will happen if it goes away.
Well, the top Boston Cardinal, O'Malley, hailed Spotlight for forcing the church to confront its sins, and the subject of this movie, it was almost like as I wrote, it was almost like the Republican Party giving, and Richard Nixon giving thumbs up to a movie like All the President's Men after it came out. But you put in there that Cardinal Law, who was forced to resign, got a nice cushy Vatican post after allowing this cover-up to fester. And I wonder, why was it important to end the film that way? And how did this experience kind of change your feeling, Tom, about the church as a Catholic yourself? But answer the other question first, if you would.
Well, I think they're connected, so you're right to ask it together. I feel like, look, I think O'Malley's statements, Cardinal O'Malley's statements, were very honorable, right? And he
Yes.
did. He really recognized the work of the Spotlight team and how it impacted the church. I think maybe the one thing I learned, which speaks to this, is that my only concern is that it is referred to as a problem of the past. And this is not a problem of the past. We made this movie because this is something that the church and society is still very much grappling with. And I think that's important to remember moving forward. And look, we're storytellers. Our first job is to tell an entertaining story, and I think we did that. But speaking with a lot of the experts who were along the ride, on the ride with us on this one, their thing is like more transparency, more action, more change, go as far as we possibly can at a quicker clip. A lot of things at the Catholic Church happen at this glacial pace. It's a massive institution. And they just want to see change happen now just to ensure that no child is ever harmed again. And I think that's the focus of a lot of these groups right now. And I think O'Malley and even Pope Francis has made overtures of this, and they're saying a lot of the right things. We just want to make sure that we see action to back that up.
Well, I think that's a lovely sentiment. And all I can say is if you haven't gotten a chance to see this movie, which is just opened, you really got to go see this one. And I appreciate you all for coming up, and I believe we're going to see a clip from the film. And thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.